Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place to discuss all things Usmnt y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. Joining me once again, my co-host Tocayo, back from his recent trip to Monterrey. What's up, Adrian? How are you, man?
Hey, how's it going, dude? It's doing all right. Liga MX is coming back this weekend
Yes, sir.
with a weird calendar, but again, this is Liga MX, and that's what we expect.
And that's the aftermath of Leagues Cup more than anything.
Exactly.
But a very boring Leagues Cup this year. Last year it was the Messi hype, right? And this year it's kind of, Messi obviously not playing. It's kind of died down, a lot of empty stadiums. But we're not here to talk about Leagues Cup. We're here to talk about something better in the U.S. sphere Today, Thursday, August 15th. It has been, reported by many, basically every fuente, every, source that Mauricio Pochettino has been appointed the Usmnt coach leading to 2026 World Cup, and beyond that, afterwards, open to discussion and open to negotiations. But for sure, to the 2026 World Cup, it has yet to be announced by the official Usmnt, Twitter or Instagram or accounts or anywhere, just because there is still some outstanding issues to be done with the Chelsea. Contract that he had, he hasn't been fully paid for that, so he cannot sign until he has completed that contract and put that behind him, more or less. So that is still kind of up in the air when that will be done. Will it be done before the September window against where the USMNT has some matches? I've been reading that it will be. Some sources say that it won't be done, that there'll be an interim coach for that window. So we'll have more coverage on that as that kind of develops. But as of for now, it's kind of a verbal yes, a commitment from Pochettino that he will lead the USMNT to the 2026 World Cup, and all that's kind of waiting is the official announcement from USMNT and that whole saga from Chelsea to kind of end. But what are your first thoughts, Adrian, on this hire? Is this a massive hire that USA fans were expecting or wanting?
Yeah, in Liga MX, every single end of the season or transfer window, we always keep on saying like, "Hey, who's gonna bring La Bomba? Right? Who's gonna make the bomb
Yeah.
purchase? Who's gonna make the big transfer?" And I think this is the concacaf bomba. This is a huge transfer news I guess transfer news, but this is a huge move by the USMNT. This is big. It's a big name. It's a bold move. And I think all in all, I mean, we're gonna go through this, but I think this is the best option available next to Jurgen Klopp, right? And I think that we all wanted Jurgen Klopp, and we all mentioned Jurgen Klopp, but I think deep down we all knew that was kind of far fetched in the sense that it was almost impossible to land Jurgen Klopp. And we had a video where we go through a few names, and all of them were nice and they were good options, but Pochettino is actually the best option available for this USMNT.
Yeah, definitely. Obviously S tier, Jurgen Klopp, right, and then below that, I think he's by himself in S tier. This is a tier underneath, and that's nothing to laugh about or scoff about. I mean, that's a as big as ambition USMNT could have had. They got it. So good for the USMNT and mattcrocker for actually doing something right for once. But Adrian, Argentino, Mauricio Pochettino, we've seen Argentinos coach in CONCACAF before, most recently, Tata Martino from Mexico. Is this on that same level? Tata Martino obviously had a fracaso with Mexico, wasn't anywhere near what people expected from him. But when he got hired, he was a manager, that had coached at Barcelona, that coached with various high-level national teams. Is this another, so, we're looking back and we've seen other teams in CONCACAF make bombas for manager for the national team, most notably Mexico, obviously. Is this at that level, or is this a higher level than Tata when he got brought on?
I'm going to say this is a higher level, and I'll tell you why. When Tata got hired by Mexico, Tata already had stepped down a level in terms of, being a manager. He was in Europe, he coached Barcelona, but after Barcelona, he didn't do that much, right? He came from coaching Atlanta United. Now, don't get me wrong, MLS is still a professional league. It is a decent level, but there's a difference between coaching at the MLS than, in La Liga, who's one of the top 5 leagues in Europe, and of course, one of the top 10 leagues in the entire world. So Tata Martino was a big name at the time, but you could totally see that he was on the downward spiral or the downward trend of his career. On the other hand, you could have Pochettino, who maybe he necessarily wasn't. He didn't do anything to brag about at Chelsea, right? And before that, he was at PSG, where he won 3 different trophies, and then he did an excellent job at Tottenham.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is different. Yes, and I think this is different because this is a coach who is still young, right? He's not necessarily at the tail end of his career, and I think he understands that hey, this could be a good launching pad for me to get back on track on that managerial spotlight. I think this is bigger because we're getting a Pochettino who is not, again, it's might not be on the upward trend of his career, but it's definitely not on a trend where he's not even considered for hot jobs in top leagues, right? If would have said no to the USMNT job, he probably would have gotten offers from other big names in the international landscape. He probably could have gotten offers from like La Liga teams, from the EPL, from Serie A. I think he has a
England
huge.
FA wanted him.
Here we go. So I think this is a coach who arrives at the USMNT or to the USMNT with a huge, like a huge background, a huge, one of those, like if you, whenever you're driving and you see one of those big ass announcements, right? He shows up to the USMNT with that level of, I guess, enthusiasm.
You mentioned his background. Let's talk a little bit about his background real quick before we kind of progress talking about Mauricio Pochettino here. Obviously Argentinian, right? He began his managerial career with Espanyol in Spain, where he, got a Copa del Rey final, but he did well out there. He kind of developed his European pedigree there, and then he moved to Southampton, right? Where he worked with Matt Crocker. Matt Crocker was the youth in charge of youth there. Afterwards, that kind of got him his feet wet in the Premier League. After that, he obviously got that big jump to Tottenham Hotspur, where we all came to know Pochettino, and did a lot with what some would consider, little compared to other top six teams. So we always know that Tottenham Hotspur is probably the least spender of the top six teams, and has the least to work with. But he was able to get them the Champions League final, and he was able to get them, always, I think, in the top three for four of the seasons he was there. So definitely, he overperformed with Tottenham. Was ultimately let go by Tottenham, and got a job at Paris Saint-Germain, where you said he won 3 trophies. The biggest one, which has still eluded every coach for Tottenham or for PSG, the
Yes.
Champions League. He wasn't able to get it. I've seen a lot of people criticize, not necessarily USMNT fans, more so Mexico fans that, don't go for USMNT, saying, Pochettino's washed. He couldn't win the Champions League with PSG. But I mean, even to this day, no one has won the Champions League with PSG.
Yeah.
So it really isn't right. But he did have, Neymar, he had Messi, Mbappe there at the time. So definitely kind of underperformed there, but he did the bare minimum, right? Win the Ligue 1.
Yeah.
After that, he went to Chelsea, and he was at Chelsea for 1 year. Chelsea, who's very in transition, and has been signing a lot since the American Todd Bowley has taken over. And for what he had, I think he did okay. Towards the end of the last season, he started getting a lot more wins, and he started climbing up the table with Chelsea. And I thought he was going to stay with Chelsea. I thought he was getting time and going to do well there. He was starting to do well, and ultimately that contract comes to an end per mutual agreement. So that leads us to now and here now, where Pochettino is verbally the USMNT coach. When they had last 2 weeks ago, it was pretty much Pellegrino Matarazzo, who was the one that was going to be in charge, right? And now it's been said that they were having very deep talks with Hervé Renard as well. But at the end of the day, there's been Pochettino, and I think most 99% of USMNT fans will be ecstatic with that hire.
This perhaps this might go in history as Todd Boehly's best decision at Chelsea, which was sacking Pochettino without good reason, right? Because Pochettino turned around the boat and actually qualified them for a European tournament. But this could be his best decision. I saw a meme saying that Todd Boehly decided to buy Chelsea to save the U.S. soccer because I think when he took, exactly.
Yeah,
So
I saw that. Yeah.
It's a funny meme.
But what can we expect from Pochettino with the USMNT? When he was at Southampton, when he was at Tottenham, from 2015-16 season, Tottenham was the highest running average players per game. So the most distance covered in a match on average for the whole season was Pochettino's Tottenham. 2017-2018, Pochettino's Tottenham. 2016-2017, Pochettino's Tottenham. 2013-2014, Pochettino's Southampton. So we can expect maybe these players to not come in overweight like Weston McKennie, to run a lot, to cover a lot of ground, be very physical and be just, everywhere on the pitch. I think that's definitely something that Pochettino brings to the table, a squad that, just doesn't stop running, right? And I know definitely you're a fan of how he handles youth development, right? So I think we could see a lot of youngsters coming into the squad.
This is perhaps the biggest thing that I like about this move is that throughout his career, he's pretty well known to be someone who develops talent. If you look at the Tottenham that he took over, right, he had Harry Kane, Dele Alli, Eric is it Dier or Dyer? Anyways, all of them were like on the up and coming, or if not in the up and coming, settling at a specific stage where he helped them evolve on their game, and then continue growing. With the exception of Dele Alli, of course, we know how Dele Alli ended. You know,
Yeah, a lot of smoke and mirrors and didn't live up to it.
yeah, but that's a different topic for not for this podcast. And if you look at Southampton, he did something similar. Maybe perhaps the one area where, or the one team that he didn't do that much of was PSG. But again, I mean, if you look at the PSG where when he was there, you can still see a bunch of young players that he was helping them out to become, that star that that PSG needed at the moment. So I think this is great. Why? We keep on saying that this USMNT squad is significantly young. It has a huge pool, or a huge depth in the pool of talent, right? And we always keep complaining that, hey, in this specific case, Greg Berhalter wasn't necessarily taking advantage of that, wasn't using the players in a way that they can exploit those specific strengths that they have. And I think Pochettino will work with that. This would also help us see and maybe remove some of like the glitter and the smoke that we have around this team, thinking that, hey, we, us as fans, we may think that this is a very talented team. I think Pochettino will set things right and bring us to a baseline to see, all right, yes, this is a talented team, but it needs a lot of work to be highly competitive. And I think that's where Pochettino will find himself pushing this team forward.
I like what you mentioned there because I think it brings up the point of the leadership council. This is a guy that has worked with the huge names Messi, Mbappe, Neymar, big egos, right? He knows how to handle these egos, and I think that's what the USMNT needs right now. These coddled players that have all the egos that think they're in control need to really be brought back down to earth, and with a real coach that can come on in there and poner orden, put
Yeah.
order,
Yeah.
and kind of steer the ship, like you mentioned, get it back on track, because we know this team has talent, and arguably the most talented team in CONCACAF, when they play well, right? Most depth in CONCACAF, that's not an argument. So CONCACAF is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about getting further than that. We know what USMNT can do with CONCACAF, but now can this hiring take them further than that? And I think, it's going to come down to, interestingly enough, I think his first match might be the one in Mexico. They're playing later down in Mexico, so that'd be nice to see. But
Damn.
Pochettino, how a lot of distinguishing factors that he brings, right? You mentioned his youth, his tactical flexibility, and managing at the highest level football clubs. What do you say to those people, Adrian, that say he's managed at the highest level, but he really hasn't won much other than that Ligue 1 with PSG, which was expected of him. People say, how do you analyze him? Because some people analyze by trophies and just looking at
Yeah.
trophies, and some by winning percentages. I just want to give you a stat here. Since taking over Southampton in January 2013, Pochettino has won 191 matches in top 5 European leagues. So that counts Chelsea, that counts Tottenham, that counts PSG. 8th most amongst coaches in that time frame since 2013. So that's pretty good, right? That puts him in the top 8 of since 2013. Do you look at his wins here? Do you look at his trophies? Is it a little bit of both?
To me, here's my approach to this question, because of course, I mean, one of the requirements was, right, having someone who has won trophies or has some sort of like reputation in terms of being a winner, either at the club level or the international level, whatever the case may be. But for me, I looked at this into a not so much of how many trophies he has won, but how far has he gotten with the squad that he currently has on each team that he has coached. Let's be honest, man. This USMNT has some names, has some key players, but it has yet to reach that potential. And yes, perhaps it had to do with the actual coach. But I don't think the USMNT is at a point that it would have attracted a super winning coach like Carlo Ancelotti or Pep Guardiola or Jurgen Klopp, right?
The S tiers.
Exactly. Like, I don't think this national team is not at that level just yet. If we were talking about France, England, Spain, sure, I think those teams will attract those names. But the USMNT, I don't think is there yet. So from that point on, to me, it's like, bring someone who has a proven track record of being a consistent coach on every single team that he has managed. Pochettino brings that. That stat that you just mentioned is actually a great example of how He is a very competitive coach. Yes, he hasn't won that many trophies, but let's also be honest. It's like he competed on the EPL against other huge teams, right? He managed to go to the final. It's not easy to win against the Liverpool from Klopp at that specific time. The bare minimum was winning link on with PSG, which every single coach that coaches PSG has to win that league. But I think from a USMNT perspective, from this point of view, from this vantage point, you rather have a coach that can help you reach that next stage and in a whim of good luck even make you a winner, right? Take you to the final, take you to a semifinal, or even dream with the final, than someone who will come here with a proven record. But we also have to acknowledge that those winning coaches have nothing but outstanding players on their squad. You can bring Jurgen Klopp, you can bring Pep Guardiola, you can bring Carlo Ancelotti, you can bring whoever you want, the biggest winner. All of them have had the flexibility of changing their squad to fulfill that specific goal. And I think Pochettino hasn't had that flexibility with the budget, with the squads that he has coached. And I think that's why it's more important right now to value Pochettino for his numbers rather for his accolades.
So you don't think Carlo Ancelotti would like to go from Thibaut Courtois to Matt Turner?
I mean, if you bring Guardiola, I don't think you're gonna be able to fulfill all his needs. So ever changing fullbacks or center backs or freaking attacking midfielders to
Right.
Accommodate his needs. And he seems to be a little unreasonable with all the transfer requests. So for all those fans who want to see some names like that attached to the USMNT badge, let's be real for a second, right?
And let's be real that this is the best it gets. Literally, like,
yeah,
it's right below the Klopp. Ancelotti is the Guardiola, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Of available managers right now, this guy has that pedigree. He has the European knowledge. He has the experience, and he has the experience of getting the most out of less talented teams. So now the big question that I have for you to finalize this episode, man. Before, when Greg Berhalter was the coach, when Bruce Arena was the coach, when Bob Bradley was the coach, when Jurgen Klinsmann to an extent, when these Americans were the coaches, fans would blame the coaches for underperformance. Hardly ever blame the players. It was always on the coaches. And for the most part, especially during the Greg Berhalter tenure, I think that was fair. Now we're bringing in a coach that has the experience, the name, the pedigree, the accolades. Will blame now shift from the coach to the players? Now, if results don't go the USMNT's way, it can't no longer be, we don't have a good coach anymore, because we do have a good coach now. It has to be now, these players just aren't up to par, right?
That is an outstanding question, and I think it would ultimately fall on how well the USMNT plays. But to agree with your comment, I think the blame, at least from the fans at the very early stages, will shift from blaming the coach to the actual players. The biggest point, or the biggest takeaway for me here, is Mauricio Pochettino, along with all of his experience and his plethora of knowledge and loving to train youngsters and developing talent, he also brings another factor, which is he's removing the safety belt, the safety veil that this spoiled squad of players has had for the last 6 years under Greg Berhalter. This is now, or this should be their first call to say, like, hey, you gotta wake up, because even if you have a horrible match, the first let's say that the first 3 matches are horrible, right? I think that's the cushion that Pochettino will have to still say that this is not his fault. It's the players that are not necessarily performing to the level that he needs them to perform. So I really would love to see a rise in performance, a better I guess endurance and a better willingness to play better from the likes of Christian Pulisic, from the likes of Weston McKennie, Tim Weah, all of these guys. I think they can no longer, fall under the
Hierarchy.
we did what exactly, and just say like, we did what Berhalter wanted, right? Now it's gonna be like, hey, you're bringing someone who understands how you play. You're bringing someone who understands your European style. Now let's see if Tyler Adams put his money where his mouth is, dude.
And I think that's the most exciting thing for USMNT fans, having somebody come in that has no connection to the USMNT Federation, that won't take any crap from the USMNT Federation, and that won't maybe respects the hierarchy, but doesn't have any favorites. Doesn't have, if somebody drops the ball on a performance, he's not afraid to shift them out and put somebody else that's more deserving to play. I think players got too comfortable with Greg Berhalter, and now they're going to have to, like you said, step out of the comfort zone. Yeah, man,
Yes,
a lot
sir.
more coverage for Pochettino as we kind of go forward here on PPG. But as we wrap up this episode, bro, where can our listeners find us?
They can always find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. You can also find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast on. Last but not least, you can also find us on Instagram and TikTok. We post memes, latest news, and shorts of our episodes.
Yeah, so be sure to follow us and let us know in the comments below. What are your thoughts on this hire? This huge hire by Usmnt that is the big cherry on top of a very poor summer, but at least this kind of gives hope to the Usmnt fan base after this disastrous summer. Let us know your thoughts on Pochettino's hiring. Are you eager, ecstatic for this? Do you have your judgments? How do you think he's going to treat the players? How do you think the players are going to respond to him? Let us know definitely in the comments below. We like interacting with you guys there down in the comments. Yeah, man, another good episode. Like I said, plenty of content to come as this story unravels and it becomes official from Usmnt. So stick it here with PPG, and I'll see you in the next one, brother.
Take it easy, my friend.
See you, man.
Deuce.